People laughed when he pulled up in that rusted old truck, windows cracked, doors groaning. They didn't know the story behind the man inside. They didn't know the storm that was about to arrive. That evening, when 70 roaring motorcycles filled his driveway, the laughter turned into silence. Before we start into today's story, let us know in the comments. Where in the world are you watching from? And if our stories touch your heart, please subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us reach our first 1,000 subscribers and bring you more inspiring stories every day. Ethan Miller wasn't the kind of man you'd notice in a crowd. At 42, he looked older than his years. His shoulders were stooped from long shifts at the lumberyard, and his jeans carried sawdust that no washing machine could defeat. Yet when his little girl, Lily, climbed into his lap, his entire face softened. She was 8, with wild curls that bounced as she spoke, and she had learned to live without her mother, who left when Lily was barely 3. Ethan's truck, a dented '86 Ford, was their lifeline. It coughed smoke on cold mornings and rattled on the highway, but it carried them to school, work, and back home. To Ethan, that truck was a stubborn old friend. To others, it was a joke. People whispered at the gas station, teens pointed and laughed, and sometimes even grown men made comments. Ethan swallowed it all, but Lily heard it too, and that he couldn't stand. One Friday afternoon, Ethan pulled into the school parking lot. The truck sputtered and wheezed, its muffler barely holding on. Lily sat quietly, clutching her backpack, pretending she didn't notice the group of parents nearby. A polished SUV gleamed under the sun, and beside it stood Brad Whitmore, a wealthy contractor in town. His son, Mason, was in Lily's class. Brad smirked as Ethan stepped out, his boots leaving dusty prints on the pavement. Surprised that things still runs? Brad chuckled loudly, making sure others heard. Some parents laughed politely, others looked away. Lily lowered her head, cheeks burning. Ethan forced a smile. "She gets us where we need to go," he said softly. But inside, he was burning. The sight of Lily's small shoulders curling inward cut deeper than any insult. Ethan placed a hand on her back, guiding her into the truck. "Don't mind them," he whispered. Yet Lily's eyes lingered on the shiny SUV, and Ethan felt his heart sink. The next morning, Ethan woke before dawn. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at the unpaid bills stacked in a neat pile. The house was small, the paint peeling, but it was filled with Lily's laughter, her drawings pinned to the fridge, and her little shoes by the door. He thought about fixing the truck, maybe replacing it altogether, but the numbers didn't add up. His paycheck was stretched thin across groceries, school supplies, and rent. Every dollar mattered. Ethan rubbed his temples, wondering if Lily deserved better than him. At school, she had stopped inviting friends over. She never asked for sleepovers. He overheard her telling someone, "Dad's truck is special," her voice cracking slightly. That night, Ethan sat on the porch steps while Lily slept. He whispered into the quiet air, "I just want her to be proud." The moonlight washed over the old truck parked under the oak tree, its rust catching silver streaks. It looked tired, but so did he. A week later, Brad Whitmore hosted his son's birthday at the roller rink. Most of Lily's classmates went. Ethan, holding Lily's hand, guided her through the crowded entrance. He wore his cleanest shirt, though it was frayed at the cuffs. Parents gathered around tables stacked with catered food, laughing easily. Then it happened. Brad's booming voice echoed across the rink. "Hey, look, the Millers are here. Did the truck make it up the hill, Ethan? Or did you have to push it?" Laughter erupted. Even some kids giggled, echoing their parents. Lily's hand froze in Ethan's, her eyes welling up. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He guided Lily quietly to the corner table, pretending not to hear. But inside, shame churned. Brad strutted past, patting Ethan's shoulder like he was doing him a favor. "No hard feelings, Miller. Just joking." Ethan forced a smile, but his throat burned. That night, when they left, Lily cried silently in the passenger seat. Ethan's hands gripped the wheel until his knuckles turned white. The following Monday, Lily didn't want to go to school. She said her stomach hurt. Ethan knew better. She was afraid of the whispers, the teasing. Kneeling down, Ethan looked into her tearful eyes. "Hey, kiddo, you're braver than you think," he said. Lily sniffled. "But everyone laughs at us, Daddy. They say your truck is garbage." Ethan swallowed hard. For a moment, he had no answer. Then he said, "That truck might look rough, but it's strong. Just like us. Doesn't matter what they think. What matters is we keep going." Lily nodded faintly, though the hurt stayed in her eyes. Ethan drove her to school in silence, the truck rattling like always. He tried to hold his chin high as other parents stared, but deep down, he prayed for a miracle, something, anything, to give Lily the pride she deserved. He didn't know that by the end of the week, everything would change in a way he never imagined. That Friday, Ethan got a call from his brother, Jake. They hadn't spoken in months. Jake lived 3 states away and spent most of his life drifting from town to town, never settling. "Heard you've been having a hard time," Jake said. Ethan tried to brush it off, but Jake pressed. Finally, Ethan admitted, "It's not me I care about. It's Lily. She deserves more than the life I'm giving her." There was a pause. Jake's voice softened. "You ever tell her how proud you are of her?" Ethan blinked, caught off guard. Jake continued, "Man, she doesn't care about the truck. She cares about you showing up. But listen, there's something I can do." Ethan frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" Jake hesitated, then said, "You'll see. Just promise me you'll be home Sunday evening." Ethan agreed reluctantly. He didn't understand, but something in Jake's voice carried weight. That weekend, Ethan went about his chores, unaware of the storm about to roar into his quiet street. Sunday evening arrived. Ethan had just finished fixing a loose shutter on the porch when he heard it. A low rumble in the distance, faint but growing. At first, he thought it was thunder, but then came another sound, and another. The ground itself seemed to vibrate. Lily rushed outside, eyes wide. "Daddy, what is that?" Ethan squinted down the road. Headlights appeared, dozens of them, lined up in formation. The roar of engines grew louder, filling the night air. Ethan's heart pounded as 70 motorcycles, chrome gleaming, exhaust snarling, turned onto his street. Neighbors peeked from windows, some even stepping onto porches, murmuring in shock. The riders wore leather jackets patched with the unmistakable emblem of the Hells Angels. Ethan froze. He had heard stories about them all his life. His first instinct was fear. What could they possibly want here? But then, from the front of the pack, a rider raised his hand. The bike slowed, lining his driveway like soldiers guarding a king. Ethan's breath caught. Lily clutched his hand, half hiding behind his leg. The leader removed his helmet, revealing a weathered face, eyes sharp yet calm. Jake stepped forward from behind him, grinning. "Surprise, brother." Ethan blinked, stunned. "Jake? What is this?" Jake spread his arms. "Meet my family." Ethan's jaw dropped. He had no idea Jake had ties to the Hells Angels. The riders dismounted, engines idling to silence. Their presence filled the night with raw power. Neighbors whispered, some clutching phones, uncertain whether to call the police. Jake put a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You've been carrying too much alone. Thought maybe it's time folks see you're not standing by yourself." Ethan's throat tightened. Lily peeked at the towering bikers, expecting danger. But one crouched down, smiling warmly at her. "Hey there, kiddo," he said, offering a tiny teddy bear from his pocket. Her eyes widened. For the first time in weeks, she smiled. The driveway overflowed with leather and chrome. Jake introduced Ethan to the riders, men and women alike, each with rough exteriors but surprising kindness in their eyes. One by one, they greeted Lily, treating her like royalty. Ethan stood there, overwhelmed. The leader, a man named Hawk, approached him. Hawk's voice was low but steady. "Your brother told us you've been taking care of your little girl, working hard, keeping your head down. People laughed at your truck. We don't laugh at family." Ethan blinked, words caught in his throat. Hawk gestured toward the rusted Ford. "That truck's been carrying your pride. So tonight, we're gonna give it the respect it deserves." Ethan shook his head. "No, you don't have to." Hawk cut him off. "We want to." Lily's eyes sparkled as the bikers gathered around the truck, circling it like mechanics and artists. Ethan felt his chest tighten. For the first time, he wasn't embarrassed. He was seen. The roar of drills, the clang of tools, and bursts of laughter filled the driveway. 70 bikers worked in harmony under the yellow porch light. They polished chrome, tightened bolts, and replaced worn parts with new ones from saddlebags that seemed endless. Lily sat on the porch steps, eyes wide, watching the transformation. Jake handed Ethan a wrench. "Come on, brother. You're part of this too." Ethan hesitated, then joined in. His hands, usually heavy from exhaustion, felt light in the camaraderie. Hours passed. Neighbors who once mocked peeked from across the street, jaws dropping. Brad Whitmore himself drove by slowly, his SUV headlights washing over the scene. He stopped, staring in disbelief as the Hells Angels swarmed Ethan's driveway. Lily caught his gaze and, for the first time, lifted her chin proudly. The sound of drills drowned out the whispers. By midnight, the rusted old Ford no longer looked like a joke. It looked like a legend reborn. When the bikers finally stepped back, Ethan couldn't believe his eyes. The truck shimmered under the porch light, its once dented body smooth, the rust erased, the paint a deep midnight blue. Chrome accents gleamed, and the engine purred like a beast. Lily ran her hands along the hood, her face glowing. "Daddy, it's beautiful," she exclaimed. Ethan's throat tightened. He turned to the riders, voice trembling. "I don't know how to thank you." Hawk crossed his arms. "Just keep doing what you're doing. Raising her right. That's thanks enough." Jake slapped Ethan's back. "Told you you weren't alone." The bikers roared their engines once more, the thunder echoing across the town. Neighbors who had laughed stood in silence, humbled. Brad, sitting in his SUV, drove off without a word. Ethan looked at Lily, who was still running her hands over the truck. For the first time, he didn't feel small. He felt like a man who mattered. The next morning, when Ethan pulled into the school parking lot, it was different. The truck rumbled smoothly, its paint catching the morning sun. Parents turned their heads, whispering. Lily hopped out, her curls bouncing, a smile stretching across her face. "Bye, Daddy," she called proudly, waving before skipping off. Brad Whitmore stood by his SUV, jaw tight. Ethan met his gaze calmly, giving a small nod. Brad looked away. Other parents approached Ethan, some with sheepish smiles, others with genuine admiration. "That's quite a truck you've got," one said. Ethan simply replied, "It's more than a truck. It's a story." As he drove away, Ethan felt lighter. For the first time, Lily wasn't ashamed. She was proud. That night, Ethan sat on the porch, Lily's head resting on his arm. The truck gleamed under the stars. Ethan whispered, "We'll be all right, kiddo." And for the first time in years, he truly believed it. That week, something shifted in Ethan's life. The whispers that once followed him at the grocery store turned into nods of respect. People who had never spoken to him before suddenly offered handshakes. Even the cashier at the hardware store, who used to smirk at his oil-stained clothes, now greeted him warmly. But Ethan stayed humble. He knew this wasn't about attention. It was about dignity. One evening, as Lily worked on her homework, she looked up and said, "Daddy." When the bikers came, I wasn't embarrassed anymore. I felt safe. Ethan's eyes stung. He cupped her face and whispered, "That's all I ever wanted, sweetheart." In that moment, he realized it wasn't just about the truck. It was about the symbol it had become. The rust was gone, but so was the shame. What remained was pride, not in the paint or chrome, but in the bond that no one could tarnish. Ethan finally understood. They weren't just surviving. They were rising. The following Saturday, Ethan and Lily took the truck for a drive through town. The engine purred like a lion, steady and strong. They passed the farmer's market, where folks waved, and even old Mrs. Collins from the church smiled at them. Lily leaned out the window, her laughter carried on the wind. For the first time, Ethan didn't hunch behind the wheel. He sat tall, proud. At a stoplight, Brad Whitmore pulled up beside them in his SUV. Mason sat in the back, glancing at Lily with something that looked a lot like envy. Brad tightened his grip on the wheel, his face flushed. Ethan turned, offering a nod. But this time, there was no smirk from Brad, only silence. As the light turned green, Ethan eased forward, leaving Brad behind. Lily glanced at her father, eyes shining. "We don't need anyone's approval, do we?" she asked. Ethan smiled gently. "No, kiddo. We never did." Sunday morning brought a knock at the door. Ethan opened it to find Hawk standing there, helmet under his arm. "Thought I'd check in," Hawk said. Ethan invited him inside, offering coffee at the kitchen table. They talked quietly while Lily drew pictures in the living room. Hawk listened as Ethan shared his worries. The bills, the long hours, the constant battle of raising a child alone. Hawk leaned forward. "You've already won the hardest fight, brother. You stayed. You didn't run when things got tough." Ethan swallowed hard. Hawk set down his cup. "Listen, we're not saints, but we take care of our own. If you ever need a hand, you call us." Ethan nodded slowly, overcome. As Hawk left, Lily handed him one of her drawings. A little girl holding hands with two bikers beside a shiny truck. Hawk studied it, then looked back at Ethan. She knows who her heroes are. The weeks turned into months. Winter's bite gave way to spring, and life settled into a new rhythm. The truck became a familiar sight in town, not mocked anymore, but admired. Ethan noticed little changes in Lily too. She held her head higher, answered questions in class, and even invited friends over. One afternoon, Ethan found her sitting in the truck's cab, practicing reading aloud to the dashboard. "What are you doing, kiddo?" he laughed. She smiled shyly. "If I can read in front of the truck, I can read in front of the class." Ethan's chest swelled. Later that evening, as they drove home, Lily said softly, "Daddy, I don't care if we're different. I like our life." Ethan's hands tightened on the wheel, his eyes misting. The road stretched ahead, golden under the setting sun. For the first time, it didn't feel heavy. It felt like freedom. The truck, once a symbol of shame, had become a chariot of hope. One evening, Ethan returned from work to find a small crowd gathered near his driveway. Curious, he walked closer and saw Brad Whitmore standing awkwardly by the truck. Brad's SUV was parked down the street, hood open, steam rising. Brad cleared his throat. "Truck broke down." Ethan asked. Brad sighed. "Yeah, won't start. Thought maybe you could help." For a moment, Ethan considered the humiliation he had endured at this man's hands. But then Lily appeared at the doorway, watching. Ethan knew the example he needed to set. He grabbed his toolbox and followed Brad to the SUV. 30 minutes later, the engine sputtered back to life. Brad looked at Ethan, guilt in his eyes. "Thanks," he muttered. Ethan simply nodded. As Brad drove away, Lily whispered, "Why'd you help him, Daddy?" Ethan crouched to meet her eyes. "Because kindness is louder than pride." She wrapped her arms around his neck, and Ethan felt the weight of years lift. That summer, Ethan and Lily took the truck on a road trip. They followed winding highways, stopping at diners and lakesides, collecting memories instead of souvenirs. At one rest stop, an elderly man admired the truck. "That's a beauty," he said. Ethan chuckled softly. "Wasn't always." The man patted the hood. "Neither were we, son. Life's about what you survive." As they drove away, Lily sang along to the radio, her voice off-key but perfect. Ethan glanced at her in the mirror, thinking of all they'd endured. The laughter, the shame, the nights he almost gave up. He realized something profound. The world had tried to define him by rust and dents, but love had repainted the truth. That evening, as they camped under a blanket of stars, Lily pointed up. "Look, Daddy. It's like our truck. The stars were always there, just needed the dark to shine." Ethan kissed her forehead. "You're right, kiddo. Always right." By autumn, the truck was more than transportation. It was a story people in town whispered with a mix of awe and respect. At the fall festival, Ethan parked it by the main square. Children swarmed around, marveling, while parents asked about the bikers who had transformed it. Ethan never boasted. He simply said, "They reminded me what family means." Lily entered the pie-eating contest, her giggles echoing across the fairgrounds. As Ethan watched her, he noticed Brad again, this time, standing quietly beside him. Brad spoke without looking at him. "I was wrong about you, Miller. Ethan didn't reply. After a long pause, Brad added, "You're a better man than me." Ethan finally turned. "It's not about being better. It's about being there." Brad nodded, humbled. That night, Ethan and Lily drove home, windows down, autumn air filling the cab. The laughter that once haunted them was gone, replaced by something stronger. Respect earned, not demanded. Years later, Lily would tell the story often. The night 70 motorcycles lined their driveway. The night her father's rusted truck became a legend. She would say it wasn't about the paint, the chrome, or the roar of engines. It was about love showing up when the world tried to make them small. Ethan grew older, the lines on his face deepening, but his spirit lighter. The truck still sat in the driveway, polished by countless hands, a reminder of the night their lives changed. Sometimes neighbors still slowed down just to look at it. Ethan would smile quietly, never needing to explain. On quiet evenings, he'd sit on the porch with Lily, no longer a little girl but a young woman, watching the stars. "You proud of me, kiddo?" he'd ask. And she'd always answer the same way, her voice steady, eyes shining, always, Daddy. And the truth lingered in the night air. Strength isn't found in shiny things, but in hearts that refuse to break. This is the story of a single dad, a little girl, and a rusted truck that carried more than miles. It carried dignity. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and press the bell icon so more people can feel the power of ordinary heroes.